Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining
Dziękuję
us
bardzo
this
za to, że
morning,
dołączyli
for
Państwo do
the
nas dzisiejszego
Construction and
poranka.
Reconstruction of Cultural Heritage
Będziemy
Sites
mówili
presentation.
o
I am Ania
zniszczeniach
Hyman of
i
the
odbudowaniu.
Copernicus Group Foundation, and I have the honor of moderating our meeting this morning. We will start with a presentation from Ms. Tetiana Svyrydenko, who is the head of Iwankivska municipality in the Kyiv region. We will then proceed onto a presentation from Chiara, Dezzi, Bardeschi, who is the UNESCO liaison officer at the Kyiv desk. And finally, we will have the opportunity to hear from Martin Duplantier, who is a CEO of Martin Duplantier Architects and the president of the AMO Foundation. He is unfortunately landing at Yashonka at 11:30, so he will be rushing in at around 11:45. So bear that in mind. Once again, thank you so much, and we will now proceed on to the first presentation.
Я би попросила на екран першу презентацію, там, де ми беремо маленький уривок. Поки шукають презентацію, дозвольте представитися, голова Іванківської територіальної об'єднаної громади, де 2885 об'єктів зазнали руйнації. Йде презентація, і ви на ній бачите, що залишилося із сіл.
And as you can see, presented here, we have a village full of civilians. There were no military areas, facilities. That village was not connected to the war at all. Now, the buildings, the facilities were destroyed completely. Some of them were destroyed up to 80%, 60% of the area. Thank God, I can say that out of 71 areas, points, only 60 were destroyed completely. The question is, what was the problem? Where was the threat for Russians? What was wrong there? We were having a calm life. We were not disturbing. We didn't want anyone to come to us and save us. That was a bridge that was connecting one of the villages and Kiev. As you can see, this is what was left. There were 11 bridges that were demolished. This is a temporary bridge that helps people to cross the river and that helps organizations to deliver food and aid. I know that we have people here, representatives of various municipalities, who didn't have much but helped us a lot. So I wanted to thank you all for your support and for helping us to survive that difficult time. Thank you very much. And right now, let me move on to the presentation. We will be talking about the destruction of cultural heritage sites. I'd like to say that without culture, without language, there's no possibility for a nation to the nation that know its history, its heritage. Thanks to Ukrainians who had their identity and they knew their history. Very important treasure that we had. That's why
Зайшовши на
curious
територію моєї громади, вони
Russian
зайшли
army
24 лютого.
entered
Через 4 години після
our
того, як
village on the
пролунали
24th or
перші
25th
вибухи
of
літаків,
February.
пішла
We
техніка зі
heard the
сторони
first bombs, we observed the first shelling,
Моя громада має 30
and
кілометрів
we
до території Білорусі.
saw
І
the
заходили
movement
орки,
of the army.
московити
My
зі сторони
municipality is close to Belarus. It's 30 kilometers away. And after 4 hours of their movement, they entered our villages. And at 11:30 on the 25th of February, you will be able to see the site, the facilities of the village.
в якому знаходилось
And
для нас
we had
серце,
a
душа моєї
historical
громади,
museum
картини Марії
there that
Богденівни
was the
Примаченко,
center of
письменниці,
our
художниці, яку знають,
municipality.
мабуть, у всьому
And
світі,
that
та
there was
творчість
also
неординарна
a
самобутня,
museum
але всім
of
відрізняється
Maria
у світі.
Primachenko.
І Ганна Верес,
She's
Кая,
well known
відома
around the world.
абсолютно всьому світові, яка має визначні
And
нагороди не тільки
as I said, this is a
українського
popular
рівня державного, а
artist,
світового.
known not only in
Єдиний музей
Ukraine, but
ткацтва, який є
that
в
was
моїй
only
громаді,
museum
в Буховичах, знищений під нуль.
that we
Так само
had,
і
a
історико-краєзнавчий
textile
музей.
museum that
Взагалі,
was also
з
in our
об'єктів культури це
municipality.
25
And when it
об'єктів
comes
культури,
to
знищені по громаді. Це
facilities, we
сільські
had
клуби, будинки
25
культури, це
facilities that were
історико-краєзнавчий
distracted.
музей, це
And
єдиний в Київській області
we
музей
talk
мистецтва,
about
який
museums
знаходиться в
and
селі Буховичі.
other facilities.
Зараз починаємо потихеньку його відбудовувати власними силами і надіємося на
Right now,
всіляку
we want to
підтримку
reconstruct
міжнародних
those
організацій,
places. We're
відновили
searching
свої
for
історії,
support
відновили
of
свої
various international
Я
organizations
вважаю, ви
so that
знаєте,
we can
можливо,
reconstruct the history,
ідентичність саме
the
цієї громади.
historical
Регіон
identity.
сільськогосподарський, регіон, де крім лісу і поля
Our
немає нічого.
municipality,
І цей регіон
there are
орки
fields
знищували
and forests, and it was
Знищували
destroyed
все абсолютно
completely.
на своєму шляху, навіть не маючи жодного супротиву від
Everything they
населення.
saw
Важко пояснити
was
їхню логіку,
destroyed.
важко пояснити взагалі, чи це
And
люди,
the truth
як ніколи
is
не називали
that
їх людьми. І після цих подій
people
для
who
нас
lived there didn't want to
жодному
stop them.
росіянину ніколи не
It's
присягали.
difficult to understand. I wouldn't be able to call those people from the Russian army people
Чи не підтримує, бо
because
для
it's
мене то є не
difficult
люди,
for me to
то є
call them
дуже
people, human beings.
страшний біль мого народу.
That's a huge pain that we experience. Those emotions are difficult to describe.
І я впевнена, що вся світова
And
спільнота оцінить
I'm
її
sure
а той,
that
хто вище, той, хто
global
над нами,
community
той, кого
will
ми називаємо Богом,
evaluate those
вищою
actions.
силою, завжди віддячить за
And
кожну сльозинку нашої дитини,
This power that we
нашої
have
матері,
above
нашого
us,
чоловіка,
the
чи то
God,
воїн, чи то просто цивільна
will
особа. Тому
somehow
прошу,
pay
включіть
off
другу
someday
презентацію.
for everything. Right now, I'd like to present the second presentation.
Важко говорити про все, особливо
It's
коли
difficult to talk
36
about
днів повної
everything,
окупації разом із
especially
своєю
when
громадою, разом із
the
своїм
36 days of
шукаєш
occupation
вихід,
with the
шукаєш
municipality
навіть самі,
and
знаєте,
the
елементарні
inhabitants
відповіді на
during this
запитання,
time when you
а
look
чому
for a
нам?
solution and
Чому
when you look for
сьогодні?
basic answers to
86-й рік ця громада зазнала від Чорнобиля найбільшого впливу. Більшість населених пунктів – це третя зона добровільного гарантованого відселення. Чому вони сама велика площа, але одні з найменших ми по населенню? Бо це наслідки Чорнобиля. Ну і ця війна нас теж не облишила. Це наша центральна площа, це за нею будинок культури. За будинком культури ви зараз будете мати можливість бачити, як проходили свята. Громада дуже така дружня, громада, яка весь час бореться за життя, громада, в якій в кожній другій, третій сім'ї є онкохвора людина. Це важко. Для когось онкохворий – це, знаєте, вже той життєвий виклик, де люди підводять риску. А в нас, коли говорять, що є онкологія першої і другої стадії, навіть якщо і третя, і четверта, люди кажуть, починаємо боротися, бо є з чим. І ми бачимо цього скритого ворога. Тому зараз на слайдах всі об'єкти культури, які зазнали якого роду руйнації. і школи з вибитими повністю вікнами, які до цього мали ремонти в 2018-2020 роках. Мали євровікна, мали дахи. Ідуть вироби музею Обуховичі, музей ткацтва. Знаєте, важко говорити про музей ткацтва, коли залишилися там деякі рушники відомої ткалі, як ними своє взуття
where we left
витирали
some
орки, як
hand-woven
іноді
fabrics,
справляли нужду на деяких цих
which
виробах.
were used by the orcs to clean their shoes, or
Якого росіянина
did-
ви не зустріли в світі, вони
they
всі
are not
однакові.
people.
Їх не народжували люди.
Everybody,
Їх немає матері.
they
їх
were not
немає
born by
батьківщини,
people. They don't have mothers.
немає ні традиції, ні історії,
They
ні
don't have a
культури.
fatherland. They don't have a
Це вироби,
tradition.
які
They
були в
don't have
нашому
history or
музеї,
culture.
історико-краєзнавчому.
These
Музею
are the products, the handmade products that you could find in our historical museum, which were renovated in 2018. We invested 26,000 grivnas in the museum. For a municipality like ours, which is not financially independent, it's a lot of money. Over 3 years, we invested this money to establish this museum as it was to be seen by the municipality. This is how it looked after the opening. We used these new facilities for
Кожна експозиція мала свою історію.
every
Кожна для нас,
exhibition had
знаєте,
its history.
пройдена особливий шлях. Тому багато чого можна говорити про мою громаду, багато що розказувати про культуру. Є колективи, які мають звання
Can
народних,
talk a lot about
самодіяльних
culture,
колективів, художні колективи, є призери різного рівня,
music bands which are national associations.
От дивіться,
And this is where you can see a missile hitting the building that was recorded, a missile hitting the Museum of History.
це те, що залишилося.
Next to it, there is just a residential area. There are no military facilities. This is what has been left.
Хочеться, щоб така музика, як зараз, лунала в
I would
душі
like this
кожного
music
кацапа,
like we hear now. I would like this music to be heard in the heart of every
пережили
Russian.
ту саму біль
I would
втрат,
like
яку
them
мали.
to go through the same pain of loss that we've experienced. We would like to ask the community to send as
Третій раз вже
many
якесь велике
arms
місто задля того,
to
щоб вони
to
відчули,
Ukraine so that we could hit Russia, Leningrad, so that they feel the same pain that we have felt. If they don't have their own experience of that, they will not understand.
Тому впевнена в тому, що Збройні сили України переможуть.
I am sure
Впевнена
that the
в
military
своїй
forces
нації,
of Ukraine will
впевнена
win.
в
I am
своєму
sure
народі. Знаю, ніколи за
that
історію
of my nation,
світової культури українці нікому не
never
здавалися, не
during
підкорялися,
the world
ніколи не
history
плазували,
has
ніколи не стояли
Ukraine
на колінах.
been
І ви знаєте, що
subjected.
14-й рік почався з того,
We never
що
kneeled.
дітей на Майдані, українських дітей, здумала
2014
влада розігнати.
started with
Наших дітей.
an event during which our children went to the Maidan Square. But nobody's going to hurt our children. When they hurt
ще та людина,
our
яка своїми
land, we will
чоботами
fight.
грязнючими пройде по Україні. Хіба що
There is no
тимчасово.
man
Але
that
заплатять
was
велику
born
ціну.
that will tread on
Дякую всім за
Ukraine with their
увагу.
dirty
В мене
shoes.
все.
Thank you very much for attention. That's all from me. Thank you.
Я би хотіла вручити цей подарунок, цю картину,
I would like to
які
give
роблять
this
діти
present, this
нашого
picture,
будинку творчості,
made by
який,
children
дякувати
of
Богу,
our
є,
arts
має
house, Center of
бомбосховище
Arts,
і працює
which
представниками
still
UNESCO.
exists.
Я знаю,
Thank
що ви були
God.
в моїй громаді, ви бачили мій музей.
We have a bunker there. Thank you for visiting my municipality, my museum. You've seen how much pain there has been, how much suffering there has been in our municipality. And I would like this picture of the mother Ukraine to be visible in the whole world. Please tell everybody about what you've seen in Ukraine.
I don't think I need to tell anyone just how incredibly powerful this has been, what we've just witnessed. Thank you so much. Thank you from the bottom of our heart for delivering such an incredible, incredible presentation. Chiara, please continue. It's going to be hard to top it, but come on.
Good morning. First of all, Ms. Tetiana, representative of Ivanki municipality, thank you for your words and for this present gift for the world. I think this is very important, and it show you already, with your words, clearly said how relevant culture in all its multifaceted aspects it's important for a country, for people, in emergency, but in particular also to recovery and reconstruct. There is no sustainable development without culture, and this, we all know this. I'm particularly glad to see so many participants in this session on cultural heritage. As you may know, since the outset of the war, UNESCO has been working closely with the Ukrainian government, institutions, and communities, people, mainly in 3 domains. The first is in all of the same importance, not for priority. It's education, and in particular through the providing access to teachers and children in digital learning, but also setting a framework for mental health and psychosocial support in education, which will be and is already a crucial issue. The second domain is media, and ensuring, supporting journalists, safety of journalists, so that they continue broadcast information about the developments in Ukraine. And the third, and which is today the topic of our session, is protection of cultural heritage. And maybe I will ask you to do it for me. I'm sorry. Maybe before going in details on the action, I would like just to evocate few main aspects of and milestones of how the UNESCO action in the context of conflict and emergency has been, this. Maybe we can ask, well, good, and now it's good. Has been evolved over time, and you can go. And in particular, starting from the very setting out of the UNESCO Convention for the Protection of Cultural Heritage in event of conflict, armed conflict, in 1954, and the subsequent conventions, like the 1970 Convention for...
I am not very good at this.
Yeah, this, okay, you can stop here. 1970 Convention on the prevention of and fighting against illicit export, import, and transfer of ownership of cultural heritage. There has been an important shift conceptually in terms of what culture it is, and also in terms of operational tools. As you can see, starting in particular with the 2013 and the case of Mali, where where 14 mausoleums were damaged, over 16 being World Heritage sites were destroyed. And today it's clear that cultural protection is a security, is a peace imperative and fundamental for cultural, for social and human sustainable development. Thus, the actions and the framework of UNESCO response globally and in Ukraine is covering mainly several aspects, from the aspects of statutory works, conventions, protection of heritage in legal term according to international conventions, but also guidelines and operational aspects, where we assist, as I mentioned, government, technical institutions, and community in several aspects. Here, what you can see, maybe we can just go back, is the action.
I'm really sorry about this. This is working very poorly.
The domain and the action of one more, of even two. Maybe I can try myself.
Can we maybe get some help here, because this is like totally not working, the remote?
Let's try like this.
Like you see, like it's
Yeah, voilà. Some actions in terms of the urgent and short-term measures, which are now priority. And these measures, starting from marking sites with the blue shield emblem of the 1954 Convention, which ensuring protection of cultural property, physical protection. The Convention does not cover only built heritage and sites, but cover also professionals, cover also transport of cultural artifacts in evacuation and in safe deposit, but also provision of materials, emergency materials, to enable this emergency action to be undertaken, and in particular with regard to security, stabilization of buildings, and very, very urgent repairs of damaged assets. You will see that in parallel, it's not only protection of assets and monitor of damage, but also the very fundamental component of supporting livelihood of professionals, of artists, of all this human capital that makes vibrant the cultural heritage of a nation. Coordination mechanism, all these aspects and action that you have been seen listed are actually gathered together in a 6 main domain of priority, with UNESCO, with the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy as agreed upon as the very urgent. And here I would like to say that intervening in emergency, it's a very complex operation. It also already requires, especially in the context of Ukraine, to anticipate investments and to start some preliminary actions which are fundamental, like capacity building and training of professionals from this level. And according to this 6 domain, I would like to present you some of our works so far done, thanks to the generous contribution and support of many donors, including government of Japan, Canada, Italy, many other European countries, Flanders, France, and many others, Ireland, for instance, showing the the high level of network of support that Ukraine is receiving. Through the monitoring and assessment and documentation of cultural heritage, you can see the last figures UNESCO is monitoring. This it's the of yesterday. We do this daily, and all these figures are officially published also on UNESCO website. At 7 December, you will see 225 cultural sites verified. So these are sites which are verified in damage through satellite imagery-based analysis and then checked on the ground. So you can, the magnitude of damage is far beyond these figures. This is the figures for sites that has been possible through satellite imagery and assessment on the ground to check in the magnitude. In this slide, you can see the interface of the UNESCO monitoring platform, where you will see also the distribution of verified damages. We can have this check within 48 maximum hours. And I took some examples, and already Ms. Tetiana has presented the damage on the ground of the museum, Ivankiv Museum, and you can see the satellite imagery, the level of accuracy, and also the magnitude. Why this is important? It's important to document and to know the magnitude of damages, but also in view of planning and prioritizing urgent emergency intervention that really needed to be taken immediately, especially in regard to ensure that what is still there is timely protected, consolidated, or evacuated if this has not been done yet. Another example from Donetsk region, in Mariupol Museum, where you can see equally how the magnitude of the damages. And voila. In terms of recovery and urgent aid intervention, we've started, and now we have completed the first phase of urgent intervention in Odessa after the spring and early summer damages verified. And this consists mainly in protecting in situ heritage. I'm very sorry, I can do like this. In situ heritage, providing technical material to support authorities, institutions to conduct this emergency work. Also in situ protection of monuments, in particular in preventive way, and you will see some images, plus support to digitalization of collection. If a collection is not known in its consistency, it's impossible to track it. If looted, if exported illicitly. So it's really the core of its protection. What you can see in this image is the labeling and the marking of 50 priority heritage buildings in Odessa with the 1954 convention emblem. And as I mentioned, this is a measure which also ensures to protect legally the building against attacks, if there are provisions of the convention respected. Some examples of in situ protection, in preventive protection. You can see here some of the sculptures in and faces of these protective shields, which is covering these sculptures with the sand bags which are filling and external layers which is fireproof. And also you will see the representation of monuments made by one of the very well famous artists, Ukrainian graphist. Again, some image of this process of protection that now we are also used to see in many cities and contexts around Ukraine. Protection of cultural institutions, museums, in particular with the protection of windows with OSB panels. Urgent repairs. Here we are in the Museum of Fine Arts in Odessa with the repairs of the glass skylights and digitalization of collections. As I mentioned, it's important to start contributing and from now to support livelihood of artists, of professionals. And in this regard, to revival institutional capacity of cultural and educational institutions related to culture, UNESCO is supporting with the Ministry of Culture and the municipality of Lviv a project for culture for peace and resilience with a view to create a cultural hub, a place for artists where to produce, where to work, to co-work, and to continue delivering their work. Also in the perspective of assisting communities, as culture has this important role of healing of traumas and also of contributing to our wellness. These are aspects beside the more technical training in terms of training framed within the 1970 convention that I mentioned already, regulating and preventing illicit trafficking of cultural property with technical training addressed to operators, but also to police, to investigators to track these artifacts in the market and to block at customs. And in January, Poland will host one of these training, which is organized with the National Institute of Cultural Heritage in Poland and bringing together the 5 neighboring countries plus Ukrainian professionals. Plus many activities which are geared toward online information session, coordinations with the professional. Living heritage, it's also a fundamental part. The war is also a dramatic humanitarian and also refugees, human crisis. Already in May, almost 7.9 million of Ukrainians were fled and refugees in many countries, with almost 8 million of internally displaced people, with many women, youth, children. And UNESCO has been conducting an initial assessment among displaced people about the role of intangible cultural heritage to continuing, enable the continuity of the intangible cultural heritage, and also to find the best way how to frame it also in the education sector. And this has been, in a way, the starting point for the customization of teaching and learning kit, what were to introduce also in a school these important aspects of heritage preservation and to its transmission to future generation. Support to the creative sector. At present, I would say that this is the domain where more are lacking data on the damage of and the impact of the war on the creativity and all this vibrant context. And in this regard, UNESCO started working in two main components. The first, to support the continuation of artistic creation and access to culture in Ukraine through, in particular, cooperation with Ukrainian NGOs and cultural associations. We have been now, through a partnership with the Ukrainian associations, we have been starting support through grants to 7 projects. It was launched in August, and these grants are ongoing and expected to be completed by December. And, but also to support artist creation for displaced artists in Europe and in other countries where they have been hosted, to continue through temporary 3 months artist residency, and also with a view to facilitate for them to have basic livelihood support through these grants. You have here some image of about 30 women who have been supported, as I said, through this art residency abroad, but also in Ukraine, and voila, and a list of these 7 projects in Ukraine led by Ukrainian cultural associations. As you will see, these 7 projects, it's just a drop, I would say, because compared to the richness and of the country and the variety, it's just a starting step. When we launched the open call in August, we received for this project, initially were only 5, more than 90 quality candidature and application forms. So that it's something that really now we are trying to see how further support the creative sector. But you will see already from the list that you have a variety of domain of cultural expression, of creative sectors, and also of place. You will see Kharkiv, Kiev, Kherson, for instance, among the one already selected. You have here some of this image. You will see also, and I think that this is also a testimony of resilience of the sector of artists. Dream Space was inaugurated exhibition during a blackout in Kiev, and the exhibition, because of the public and the artists wanted to continue and to have it and to do it, continued even during the blackout. And you, so first and the last slide, the last but not less of equal importance domain is the to accompany the country in its the digital transformation of cultural heritage management. And here we know how we already mentioned digitalization, digital database as protection, and this is also in terms of enabling interoperability among already started initiative in terms of emergency support database, and also looking at inventories, but also through 3D scanning, capacity building, and all technologies that are already available and that can be very efficient in the context of heritage protection. I'm stopping here and I'm remain available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chiara. And I would like to officially welcome our late arrival. Martin, thank you for joining us. You missed some incredible presentation initially from Tetiana, but we're glad to have you here right now. I don't know if you have any prepared remarks. If not, I thought that maybe you could start us off talking about the role of international professionals in crisis situations like these and in protecting and rebuilding the cultural heritage.
With great pleasure. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here with you. Yeah, we started to look at not only cultural but more architectural heritage on our side. Having hosted a lot of professionals from Ukraine fleeing the country 8 or 9 months ago in France, about 300 of them were hosted in architectural offices in France. And this gave us also the opportunity to, with some researchers, students, a small group of people that I gathered in Lviv, to map actually the heritage losses all around the country. So we focused on 5 different regions, and we kept an eye, an everyday eye of what was being hit and what was being damaged. And honestly, it's a mix of feeling that there is some kind of a specifically organized will to annihilate the roots of this country and the cultural and architectural roots of the country. And there is clearly a need to help Ukraine to actually keep track of that and finance, protect, and sustain the help over the coming years to rebuild this heritage and maybe rebuild also a new heritage. Being an architect myself, an urban planner, I know that every epoch has its heritage, and there's, in this dramatic moment, there's also some kind of a mission for every one of us to make it possible to create the future of Ukraine. So what is I think also interesting is that the heritage of Ukraine is very eclectic, it's very diverse. When we come from Western Europe, we are struck by the richness and the diversity of this heritage, and also by the unique specificity of its folk architecture, of its vernacular architecture, and that is something that we don't hear a lot about. But there are a few books around this topic, and around a comparison between Japan and Ukraine, and about the incredible uniqueness of the carpenters, the woodworkers of Ukraine, and that created this incredibly rich catalog of small and larger buildings in the rural areas mainly. And this is one of the seeds that we would like to actually use. And as for this new heritage, we think that we are in the 21st century. We have an energy crisis all over the world. You know, independently of the war, there is the post-carbon world to be built. And I think we have all the ingredients in our hands in Ukraine to create and to be the avant-garde of this heritage from the 21st century, the post-carbon one, and the energy, let's say, having an energy answer to this world climatic crisis. So there is hope, and there is also a need for us international professionals to open the eyes of, you know, out of these very dark moments, to open the eyes and to look at these seeds and these assets that Ukraine has to protect and has to enhance and develop in the coming months. And just to finish with that, reconstruction can also be the worst moments in architecture history. And we know that in of course, around here and also in Western Europe. So we have to anticipate things. We have to set up the, let's say, the rules or the targets, the ambitions. And also, we're working currently on having on the map all the resources. I was talking about post-carbon architecture. What comes first is local resources. What are the local resources that can be used or recycled to build this new heritage? And this is very interesting because actually we don't know how many. I mean, what will be the demand forces after the war? But what we know is the resources will still be there, and this is something that is incredibly important for, you know, to create jobs and to create a specific architecture linked to the place, linked to the people, and that also creates some kind of a community gathering, or at least it develops some kind of a shared vision of the territory, the larger territory, not only the cities where most of the bombings were done. I mean, I visited a lot of villages that were also completely torn down, but clearly there is a need to reconnect the cities with their local territory, and resources is a good link. It's also a job creator, locally done, and I think also a weapon against energy dependency, and that's very important. Anyway, there is a new coherency that we could develop all together.
Yes, I think you're obviously correct, especially that reconstruction can be, you know, the worst part of the damage can be in the reconstruction sometimes. And I think that it's what is extremely crucial. One of the things that you mentioned is that so much effort goes towards the cities, while so often smaller towns and villages go completely forgotten. It's much easier for a major city to attract resources, and both in terms of personnel and expertise and funds to protect its cultural architectural heritage, whereas smaller places and villages are often, you know, left to fend for themselves. So I have a question for Tetiana. What do you think should be the role of organizations like UNESCO, of the international community, in supporting you on your road to reconstruction?
Ну, для того, щоб підтримати нас на шляху до реконструкції, перш за все, це треба кошти. І кошти не маленькі, якщо взяти цей
In
музей.
order to support us on this way, we need funds, big funds.
Ви його бачили на відео.
You could see this missile hit in the recording. All the 14 images by Maria Primachenko were saved. In the first hour of the strike, there are neighbors who live close by. They went to the museum, they broke the window, and they saved the 14 images within the first half hour. The most of the exhibition of the works of weaving also survived. The most part, the biggest part of the collection, these are pots, these are towels, wooden products. All of those exhibits were taken out through the window. When the orcs came to the museum, they didn't even understand what was going on because people used blankets to cover these items in the park. Nobody is going to ever destroy our culture and our nation. Will there be room for our artists or place for our artists to paint, to create? Well, they will do it anywhere, on the concrete, on pavements, but they will live, they will create, they will blossom. Now, in every municipality, we have to analyze how much damage there has been, what the situation is, and then we have to create documentation, the budgeting, and ask them how they see it, how they see their municipalities. Well, I see it with a bunker, with a shelter where people can shelter themselves. Maybe as long as we need to know, we need to be aware of the fact that we need shelters to protect us against missile strikes, air strikes, because we never know what Vladimir Vladimirovich will think about. We don't want to have a nuclear strike. So please, you can see that we have a culture, that we have heritage, we have our roots, our authenticity. We are not ordinary. So we want to tell the world now what we have. Please help us to communicate this, and to protect this. We don't have to put off reconstruction until later. Already in our municipality, we have managed to reconstruct many private buildings. If you could help us by providing us with some funds, by letting us take part in some grants, by getting us some funds to rebuild our schools, kindergartens, the infrastructure, we will be really, really grateful to you. Am I right, the Ukrainian people in the room?
Yes, thank you. Of course, funds. That's always the priority, right? In fact, one of the most shocking things that I learned recently about the Russian invasion of Ukraine is that there are apparently orders. The military has orders that when they take a new town, a new village, a new locale, they go to schools and libraries and specifically destroy books on Ukrainian history and on Ukrainian culture, so that there is, no material for the kids or the young people to learn about their heritage, learn about where they are coming from, and that is repulsive, to say the least. That is absolutely shocking. Chiara, would you like to respond to what Tetiana just said? I saw you were taking notes very meticulously, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I can reply to the same question from UNESCO perspective. And actually, first of all, I would like to say that personally, I had the opportunity only to be in Ukraine, based in Kiev, starting for October. So I didn't have yet all the possibility also to visit the magnitude of the damages and also the opportunities. But already it's clear, to reply to the first question, in sense that the cultural heritage is very rich and diverse. I will not repeat what already said, but I think it would be important to give you some figures. According to the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy, on the ground there are about 12 million artifacts in collections, and there are like around 970 national museums and more than 2,500 collections. And this is only one part. It doesn't consider the private collections or smaller museums which are not mentioned. But sites, buildings, we are around 120,000, plus historic cities, which are very important. So indeed, there is a big variety, also in terms of not only physical heritage, but also, as we mentioned before, and we show all these aspects. As I mentioned from the beginning, we have been working very closely with the government, institutions, with municipalities, and in order really to start from the at the level of municipalities, cities in this endeavor. In terms of reconstruction, Ukraine, it's very unique because the richness of heritage, diversity, but also in terms of the professional capacity, which is there. And I would like to say also that we mentioned funding issue, of course, budget issue, but also that the war has stopped, halted in a way very virtuous process in terms of decentralization for heritage. Because even in terms of the local budgeting, you showed before some of the images, but even a local budget during the last 3 years was incremented investment in culture of more than reaching 3% more, which is enormous for a local reality. I think that there is a very vibrant and vital civil society. We have been seen from the beginning contributing to the safeguard of heritage. You mentioned this in citizenship, citizen going and rescue works of art. And this is very important, and also their role in reconstruction. Livelihood, all the aspect of guidelines, regulatory framework, this, and even law, cultural law revision will be a crucial issue when we come to reconstruction, to prepare. And needless to say and to repeat, that this is really the crucial moment. It's where we can really build together a reality. And this is only possible if there is synergies, coordination, and we are supporting the work that government, institutions, and people are doing, and to really leveraging on heritage towards this sustainable reconstruction. I think these are the main aspects so far. Thank you.
I was wondering, it's really a question to all three of you. Also, if anyone from the audience would like to join in our discussion or ask a question, please absolutely just raise your hand so that we can pass the mic over. Okay, there we go. We have a first taker.
Okay. I would also like to answer to Tetiana about the schools, because this is one of the projects that we're leading at the moment, is to help rebuild schools and adapt them with bomb shelters. So we've created, because we know that there are some typologies of schools in Ukraine. They're following standards and typologies, and so we've created inspiring shelters. That's how we named them. So they can be either inside or created outside. And what we would like to do is to create a toolbox so that it's very easy to build a shelter, and we can provide funds and we can provide also material to do so. But what we want to do is to turn these shelters into something else, because we don't know how long this war will be, and we don't want the kids, when they go to the shelter, they think, oh my God, it's again going to the shelter. You know, we want them to think that it's going to, I don't know, a cinema, a movie theater. It's going to the a music room. It can be a sport room. It could be anything, but it should have a double use, and it should be inspiring also for them. So we're ready to work with you and to actually help as much as we can Ukrainian schools. And as for the bomb shelters, they can be independent from the existing buildings. And we've also created some kind of a toolbox that are very easy, very cheap to build using rubbles. It's been tested in other places, so we know that it works. We are doing right now in France a real test again on this basis, and we'll be happy to share it with you as well, so that everyone in Ukraine has the possibility to create these shelters in a very short period of time.
What a wonderful project. Please go on.
Thank you so much for all of the speakers, incredible presentations. Chleb Soloyo, Polish Red Cross. When we speak about reconstruction of cultural heritage sites of Ukraine, we speak of the whole territory of Ukraine, right? And my question is to UNESCO about reconstruction of cultural heritage sites in the temporary occupied areas. How this process and how the work is implemented and how the process are going right now at the current moment. Thank you.
Yeah, when we are speaking about, emergency intervention, we are considering the geographical spread, without any specific, all the area. And this, it's not only specifically one group, ethnic group or another, but really in a broad sense of heritage. When we are speaking about reconstruction and how this will apply, of course, this is something that we need from now to have a clear assessment. As you have seen from the slide that I showed at the beginning with the satellite imagery analysis and the in situ, today we said there are 221 sites, and you saw that east side, it's a facade, it's where more sites are located. But of course, we need to have more assessment, possibility to document. And as I said, this is the base for any, not only in terms of documentation of the damage per se, but also for planning exercise, identification of priority. If we do not have this data, we cannot do. And maybe I would like also to say that the impact of the war has clearly shown the weakness of inventories, of preparedness plan. And this is an area where there is a need to, according to the priority set by the country, to further strengthen capacity. And certainly these areas are those where there is a need in terms of strengthening this capacity of prevention and preparedness, security plans for museums, security plans and management for heritage, how to prepare and to foresee. This is something that it's done globally today. And it's something that Ukraine wants, where Ukraine wants to put the accent in terms of reaching certain international standards, and where UNESCO can bring its technical capacities, knowledge, expertise, and also through very operational projects. Let's not forget the people. Because, yes, exactly, because this is, I think it was behind your question, the issue, because we spoke a lot in terms of physical heritage, built heritage sites, but artists are really and cultural producer professionals are the core. And many are already displaced, as I mentioned, more than 8 million already in spring, the displaced people. So even in this project that now we are starting in Lviv to create this cultural hub, Lviv, it's in the west, and it's maybe one of the areas where it's less today impacted daily, I would say. But it's also one of the cradle where many artists and people are looking for refuge now. So it's not a project for Lviv. Lviv, it's a location, but it's a project for artists, for Ukrainian communities and people. So this is the message that we really would like to pass.
Does UNESCO have access to the Russian-occupied territories in Ukraine? Are you working behind the front line at all?
We are following the overall UN procedures. What we are trying to do now, according to the identified most, I would say, endangered place because they were damaged, is to have some emergency assessment to quantify exactly. So this is something that we are preparing, and as you can imagine, it requires a lot of logistic work. Of course, satellite imagery, this is something that also putting at security staff, and in particular professional in their daily work. So we are constraints on which we are working, but the idea is really to start with, to have this assessment first. We are speaking about culture, not today, but let's not forget at the beginning I said that UNESCO is also involved in the education domain. And in this regard, I mentioned before distance learning. I mentioned equally the mental health and psychosocial support, and these are crucial for this area, and the children, but also teacher, all the entire system. Journalists as well. What we did from the very outset, from February, is to provide journalists with the safety equipment to be able to document the insecurity and all the aspects related to security of journalists, to be able to continue to document and to do the broadcasting, and to have enough resources even to continue their job. So this is a wider perspective, but indeed culture is a very crucial, important component, as we all agree on that.
Thank you. We had ladies here raising their hands. Oh, there you go.
I wanted to know if I'm Claudia Lante from Italy, and I write European projects. I wanted to know if there are some funds also for artists to widespread their culture and to be connected with European artists, because I think that I speak about Italy. There are a lot of people who would like to give their help, but not only at humanitarian side, but also from professional side. So a group of artists, group of counselor, group of law, and there is no connection with Ukraine. So I wanted to know if there are funds about it, because I would like to write a project about it. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can take 2 or 3 and after.
Yes, that's a good idea. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's a good idea. Maybe we can take another 2 questions, and then we will do a group response.
Can I speak right now?
Of course.
Oh, okay. So first of all, thank you so much to UNESCO for protecting our cultural heritage. I feel like it's so important, knowing that our cultural heritage have been destroyed for centuries, and I'm really, really grateful for that. But the real question, how do we stop Russia from not only stealing but also appropriating our cultural heritage? People from Europe, people from America, they don't even know how big our heritage is, because it was stolen and it was appropriated. And it was appropriated after the Second World War. It was appropriated when the Russian Empire existed, when the Soviet Union existed. And it's happening right now. For example, the city of Mariupol, the homeland of Arkhip Kuinji, his works are stolen right now. My homeland, Kherson, the National Museum of Kherson, everything's stolen. Melitopol, everything's stolen. And I feel like that will be appropriated too in years, because that is what happened in St. Petersburg. Look how many Ukrainian-born artists are there, and they are called Russian. So yeah, that is my question. How do we work with that? Maybe it is informational support or something, because there is no future without the past. And I agree with Tetiana on that, because our artists right now, they will draw and they will work no matter what, no matter how they have spaces or not. But how do we get justice for what happened in the past and what's happening right now? Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah. Shall I reply to the first order? Okay, first question. We started, yes, we have some programs already, especially for artists, female artists who fled Ukraine and are in Europe and other countries. And actually we started the first program with the Heritage in Emergency Fund, which is a fund at UNESCO where contribute several, it's a multi-donor funding. And with this funding, we could already start this 3 months residency, artistic residency for 30 women in Europe. But indeed, this domain, it's an area where much more is needed to be done and to support it. And this is very important. Because also, let's not forget, these artists, before they were saying what next, what when we will, they will be crucial for also to contribute to the reconstruction, to this new, even dynamic culture. So, and it's also an opportunity. What we learn is also that during, I would say, maybe there has been actually an isolation a bit. So for professionals with the networks, and this indeed is something that we are looking at. And it's a fundamental, yes, indeed, to expand it in all the domains of culture, also in terms of professional skills. And this is something that, for instance, in other contexts, in other countries, in conflict or crisis, UNESCO has been doing to create these networks. And that's why always we insist to create this coordination mechanism, to have umbrella programs where all partners, technical partners, institutions, civil societies are coming, really to find a way how to synergize and to have this kind of approach. Heritage. I mean, I think that this is something that for sure will be part also of a future debate, I think, in terms of what is Ukrainian culture. But let's not forget that there are also the history and the past. We cannot change it. So what happened in the past, I'm saying as historical data, not what has been stolen or the country deprived. So in a way, it's also part of the history of a country. And so It's within the framework of UNESCO Convention. We have also a convention, the 2005, where you speak about cultural diversity, and cultural diversity, respect for it, and its knowledge, it's also important. How to retrieve artifact collections. At the beginning, I mentioned the legal international framework, and the convention UNESCO is the custody today. And there are conventions, there are legal international tools for to deal with these specific issues. Some, like the 1917 convention, they're not retroactive. But others, like the UNIDROIT 95 convention, enable also to discuss this. But there are also mechanisms in terms of return committee, where UNESCO is operating as a mediator between parties upon request of countries for specific cases. But the legal issues are very long, we know. So it's something that sometimes are taking many years to be solved, as in the tribunal cases, I mean. But there is a framework, even in terms of also the international committee for crime, and so it's there. I think, of course, it's a different. It's the speed of this mechanism, but are there and can be mobilized.
We can take one more question, maximum two, because we're short on time.
Так, я думаю, що це буде таке питання, побажання. Я представниця Луганщини, саме сходу України.
I am a representative of Uganszczyzna from the east of Ukraine. I wanted to thank you because over the last year, there's been a full-blown war, but actually the war has been going on for 9 years in our terrain. A lot of cultural heritage has been damaged. Last year we were dealing with digitization of our cultural heritage thanks to UNESCO. We have reasons to be proud. We have very rich history, and now when the enemy has come to our territory, I am really thankful to a young girl from Kherson who inspires us. I am really grateful when the youth appreciates our cultural heritage. I am grateful for your support. I am proud to say that we are supported by our people, that we are supported, that we are included. It's wonderful, and I am really grateful to the whole civilized world for their support. We are ready to cooperate. Please just support us.
That's very beautiful, and of course you are more than deserving of the support of the entire international community. Would anyone else like to ask a question? I think we will be wrapping up then. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Thank you, Martin, for flying in, even if at the very, very last minute. Thank you to UNESCO for their amazing efforts in Ukraine, and thank you to, above everything else, thank you to Tetiana for your fantastic, touching, beautiful presentation. You make us all proud. Thank you.